Good day, everyone. Welcome to the third episode of the Philippine History Podcast.
This is Beatriz.
This is Paola.
And this is Patricia. This year podcast to understand all about the Cry of Pugad Lawin in the history of the Philippines. Before we dive in, I would like to call my co-host, Miss Beatriz, to introduce our guest speakers for today.
Thank you, Patricia and Paula. But before I introduce our guest speakers, allow me to apologize for the quality of our audio for our stream as we encountered some technical difficulties while recording. Now back to our program. Joining us this afternoon are our esteemed authors who will not only help us understand what really happened in the Cry event, but also answer all our questions. First off is a friend of both Jose Rizal and Andres Bonifacio, a Filipino physician and revolutionary leader. At the age of 23, he joined the Society of Katipunan, a movement which sought the independence of the Philippines from Spanish colonial rule and started the Philippine Revolution. Please welcome Dr. Pio Valenzuela. Our next speaker will be Mr. Santiago Alvarez. He is a revolutionary general and the founder and honorary president of the first directorate of the Nacionalista Party, known for being the author of the Katipunan and the Revolution. A warm welcome for Mr. Santiago Alvarez. Our third speaker is known by her nickname Oryang, founder and vice president of the women's chapter of the Katipunan of the Philippines. She worked alongside her husband Andres Bonifacio, the Katipunan leader, and played a heroic role in the Philippine Revolution. She was also the custodian of the documents and seal of the Katipunan. Let us all welcome Mrs. Gregoria de Jesus. Also joining us this afternoon is the commander of the Guardia Civil Veterana of Manila and the responsible for the investigation of the discovery of the Katipunan, none other than Captain Olegario Diaz. And last but not the least, among our guest speakers is a member of the Katipunan, Andres Bonifacio's childhood friend, and the one responsible for the erection of Bonifacio Monument in Caloocan City. Please welcome Katipunan General Guillermo Masangkay. And to represent the rest of our students in this hall, we ask one lucky guest to join our speakers, Miss Irika Paran. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, our guest speakers for this afternoon. Now may we call on Patricia and Paola for the next part of the program.
Before we proceed to our question and answer portion, let us pose this trigger question to activate your attention. Which version of the first cry do you believe in? Or if you were a Katipunero, will you have joined the cry at Pugad Lawin? Why or why not? So, while you are pondering this question, we will now start opening the gates of the cry. So good day, guest speakers. We are extremely grateful that you are here, guesting in our third episode to share your knowledge and narrate the happenings in the first cry, not only for us, but also to the people who are listening today. So ayan, this first question is dedicated to Dr. Pio Valenzuela. So what is the importance of the cry of rebellion in the Philippine history?
Magandang araw sa inyong lahat at sa lahat ng nakikinig. Ako nga pala si Dr. Pio Valenzuela. Pag-usapan natin ang kalagayan ng mga nangyari ng unang sigaw ng Pugad Lawin noong August 1896 sa mga lugar sa Caloocan. Nasaksihan ko ang mga pangyayari ng unang sigaw ng Pugad Lawin o Cry of Rebellion. Hindi ito nangangahulugan sumisigaw o literal na umiiyak. Ngunit ang ibig sabihin nito ay pagpunit ng mga sedula sa paglaban sa gobyerno ng Espanya. Ang pagpunit namin ng sedula ay paggalas ng mga Pilipino sa gobyerno ng Kastila. At ang ating katipunan ay nagkakaisa noon upang bubuo ng ating sariling gobyerno. At ang katipunan noon ay ang ating unang gobyerno ng Pilipinas. Sa mga nangyari noon, masasabi ko na lahat kami ay nagkaisa para makuha ang kalayaan na dapat makamit ng ating bansa. Ito ang oras na kinukuha namin ang ating kalayaan mula sa gobyernong Espanya upang baguhin ang kasaysayan ng Pilipinas. Ang aming kontribusyon at ang mga taong sangkot sa unang sigaw ay mahalagang bagay sapagkat iyon ang palatandaan ng revolusyon at iyon ang simula ng pagbabago ng ating bansa tungo sa kalayaan. Maraming salamat.
Thank you very much, Dr. P. Valenzuela, for sharing with us your take on the relevance of the first cry in the Philippine history. Indeed, it was a historical event that brought Filipinos together in achieving a common goal, which is to liberate the country from its colonizers. It is with no doubt that the first cry of rebellion has truly encouraged, inspired, and empowered many Katipuneros to put up a fight, defend, and reclaim our home country.
For our next question, this is attributed to Mr. Santiago Alvarez. So, where did you get your own version of the cry even when you were not able to witness the historic event?
Good day, everyone. So apparently it was said that I wasn't able to witness the said historic event. But even though I was not considered as an eyewitness of the event in my version, I was there in Cavite at the time of the historic event. That will be all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alvarez, for that informative response. Although your version is not accepted by the country's historians as equal in weight with that of eyewitnesses to the event, we are still delighted that you were able to shed light on this matter. We are sure that our listeners out there are also thankful to you for clarifying their misconceptions.
For our third question, this is highly dedicated to Miss Gregoria de Jesus. So, a lot of people are also curious, even us hosts, about this intriguing question. So as a person whose name is Miss Gregoria de Jesus, what are the similarities and differences of the four accounts?
Ako ay asawa ni Andres Bonifacio. Toong August 25, 1896 ay naganap ang unang sigaw sa Balintawak na tinatawag naming Pasong Tamo o Caloocan. Ayon kay Guillermo Masangkay, noong August 26, 1896 ay naganap ang unang sigaw sa Balintawak, partikular sa bahay ni Apollo Samson. Ayon naman kay Olegario Diaz, August 25, 1896 ay naganap ang unang sigaw. Sa pagkamatay ng aking asawa na si Andres Bonifacio, dumating si Julio Nakpil. Ayon sa kanya, August 24, 1896 ginanap ang unang sigaw sa lugar na tinatawag naming Kangkong na halos katapat lamang ng Pasong Tamo, Caloocan. Sabi naman ni Pio Valenzuela, taong August 23, 1896 ay ginanap ang unang sigaw sa Sitio Gulod, Pugad Lawin. Sinasabing ito ay ginanap sa tahanan ni Juan Ramos na anak ni Tandang Sora. Ang pagkakapareho ng accounts nito ay ang pagpunit ng sedula kasabay ng pagsigaw. Samantalang ang pinagkaiba nito ay ang araw, lugar kung saan ito naganap.
Maraming salamat po, Ma'am Gregoria de Jesus. We truly admire your courage in safeguarding the secret documents and weapons as the lakambini of the Katipunan. Your insight on the similarities and differences of the aforementioned accounts are truly helpful in allowing us to get a good grasp and understanding of the details that make each document unique.
Let's now move on to our fourth question. This is for Captain Olegario Diaz. Please help us be enlightened about your findings regarding the Cry of Pugad Lawin.
According to my findings, the first Cry of Pugad Lawin happened on August 25, 1896 in Balintawak. So, nung nalaman ni Bonifacio and mga followers niya that their conspiracy have been discovered, lumipat sila sa Caloocan and eventually sa Balintawak. And they were followed by 200 men dun. Inatake sila ng Guardia Civil and they retreated in their hiding places. So they called a Supreme Council meeting on August 25 sa Balintawak, where there are 5,000 members who attended. So, doon nila pinag-usapan kung anong dapat nilang gawin. And actually, there are some who suggested that they go back and surrender. Pero syempre, hindi pumayag si Bonifacio. So, nung araw din na yun, Bonifacio's proposal was approved by the majority.
Gracias, Captain Oligari Diaz. Your official report findings were truly helpful in enlightening our listeners what happened in the Cry of Balintawak. Your rigorous efforts in investigating the Katipunan's activities painted us a clear picture of the sequence of events that happened on the August of 1896.
Next query. This is for the interest of and conducive to Katipunan General Guillermo Masangkay. What is the significance of the tearing of cedulas?
Good day, as I have witnessed what happened in the meeting held in Balintawak. Let me tell you what happened in that meeting. The meeting was opened by Andres Bonifacio discussing with the Katipunan organization. So, the purpose of that meeting is to talk about the uprising or the revolution movement against the Spaniards. On that meeting, some leaders were disagreeing about the revolution, saying that it is too early, we need foods, armor, and people. But Bonifacio disagreed to them. Instead, he argues to start the revolution. And that moment, he gave a fiery speech convincing the Katipunan organization. He gave willpower to fight against the real enemy, talking about patriotism, love for motherland, fighting for the Spanish colonizers and rulers. And then he also said that if we don't start the uprising, the Spaniards will get us anyway. After his speech and persuasion, the Katipunan organization shouted as one and revolt for the Spanish colonizers. The people are willing to fight for the land and desperate to claim it from the Spanish rule. When we agreed on the revolution, Bonifacio said that the sign of slavery is the cedula. And then he asked to tear the cedula, and this will be the sign that we declared ending the relationship to Spaniards. So the significance of tearing that cedula is the symbol of the revolutionary movement of the Filipinos. A beginning declaration of protest under the Spanish rule to fight for our rightful land, fighting for freedom and independence.
Thank you, General Guillermo Masangkay, for that very comprehensive discussion. We agree that the tearing of cedulas played a significant role in bolstering the courage of Katipuneros who were determined to fight for our country's freedom. I hope that history has finally taught us its lesson instead of repeating itself in the present generation.
And last but not the least, this question is for our lucky guest speaker, Miss Irika. So for our last question, that is highly credited for you, what is the turning point of Pugad Lawin?
According to the eyewitness, they mentioned captures, escapes, recaptives, killing of Katipunan members, the interrogation of Chinese spies, the arrival of arms in May Kawayan, Bulacan, and pati na rin yung naganap na debate nila Teodoro Plata, and even the decision to go to war, and also pati na rin yung pagputol ng mga sedula, and lalo-lalo na yung pagkawala ng kanilang pondo para sana sa kanilang labanan. So, sa mga nasabing or mga na-mention sa account na yun, ito na yung parang naging simula ng malawakan na revolusyon. However, ang dapat natin na i-define as a turning point is when we finally rejected the Spanish colonial dominion sa pamamagitan ng buo natin ng sarili nating pamahalaan, and also in setting of leaders to initiate and guide the revolution bilang or patungo sa kapangyarihan na bansa.
Thank you, Ms. Irika Paran, for enlightening us on this matter. I'm sure that your institution is very proud of you for exemplifying an in-depth understanding and awareness of historical events like that of the Cry at Pugad Lawin. There you have it, everyone. That concludes the sharing of our invited guest speakers for this episode. Maraming salamat po, Dr. P. Valenzuela, Sir Santiago Alvarez, Ma'am Gregoria de Jesus, Captain Olegario Diaz, General Guillermo Masangkay, and Ms. Irika Paran for being with us today. I'm sure that our listeners out there have truly gained valuable insights that are helpful in understanding our nation's history. You know, it's not every day that we get to converse with people who have witnessed historical events like the Cry of Pugad Lawin. That's why creating this episode has been truly a humbling experience. So just a quick recap of everything that's been said. Dr. P. Valenzuela gave us two versions, the first of which takes place in the 26th of August 1896 at Balintawak. Meanwhile, the second version tells us of the events in the 23rd of August 1896 in Pugad Lawin. Sir Santiago Alvarez, on the other hand, was not an eyewitness of the event, but he claims that the first cry happened on August 24, 1896 at the barn of Cabeza Melchora at a place called Sampalucan, a barrio of Bahay Toro. Lacambine Gregoria de Jesus also shares with us her recollection of August 25, 1896 near Caloocan, which according to her was the actual date of the first cry for freedom. Her version shares a similar date with that of Captain Olegario Diaz, who also claims that the first cry happened on August 25th of 1896 at Balintawak. He also had Katipunan General Guillermo Masangkay, who was an eyewitness of the event, telling us that the first cry took place on none of the aforementioned date, but on August 26, 1896 at Balintawak. So if we're going to compare all of their accounts, we could actually notice two prominently varying details, and these are the date and the place of Philippines' first cry for freedom. These details remain disputed, but one thing is for sure. Philippines' first cry for freedom has been pivotal in uniting the efforts of Katipuneros who wanted to sever ties with Spanish colonizers. And it was the destruction of their cedulas that signified their allegiance to the Katipunan and realizing the Philippine Revolution. Had it not been for the dedication and commitment of our forefathers to defend our native land, Filipinos might have not been able to retrieve our home country from the hands of foreign settlers. So for our listeners out there who aspire to be historians, may these accounts guide you in determining which sources must be held with greater importance. Remember that historians endeavor to reconstruct as much of the past, and that can only be made possible if you're able to identify the primary and secondary source of the event. Once again, this is Paola from the makers of the Philippine History Podcast. Diyos mabalos po sa Indong Gabos.